I'm going to tell this straight, precisely the way I remember it. And if my memory is bent, then the bend is part of the truth. People keep asking why I didn't turn on all the lights, why I didn't open the closet and pull everything out into the hallway and make a mess of it until the house had nothing left to hide. I can give you a dozen sensible answers that sound brave in retrospect, but the real reason is simpler. I didn't want to make it angry. And yes, I know houses can't get angry, but people do. And a home is just the shape people leave behind when they go. We moved in on a Thursday, the boxes stacked high enough to turn the hallway into a canyon. The neighborhood was polite, almost rehearsed. Retired couple across the street, a family with chalk on their driveway, a teenager jogging past in a school hoodie that matched mine. The house smelled like varnish and dust. My room faced the street and had a walk-in closet in the far corner. I want you to picture it the way it looked in the first hour. The door half closed because the hinges were stiff, a single louvered slat bent slightly, and a pull chain light that you could hear breathing when you touched the switch on the wall. It made this thin, metal hiss, even when it was off. That first night, I put on a movie I'd seen 100 times because it's easier to fall asleep when the following line is already in your mouth. My dog, Maisie, black, nervous, the size of a loaf of bread, curled at my feet. When the scene where the hero finally realizes the danger began, I reached down to find her warm head. My hand landed on air, and in that same flicker of time, something moved in the front corner of my room. It didn't leap out. It didn't perform for me. It simply crossed, the way a person crosses a space they know by heart. Short, like a woman who buys petite pants, not a child's smallness. Hair falling straight, the silhouette kept its edges even in the movie glow, which is the part that still bothers me. Most shadows are lazy about their borders. This one wasn't. She walked into my closet as if the closet were not a container, but a doorway to somewhere she needed to be. She did not look at me. I remember thinking, wildly, that my eyes were doing the thing they do when you wake up too fast and the room slips. And right on top of that thought, I heard the click of claws on wood. Maisie launched off the bed and killed the distance to the closet in 2 strides, barking with a noise so serious it made the door tremble in its frame. People say dogs know. Dogs remember faster than we do. They don't waste time on reasonable excuses. I sat there and tried to be a scientist of my own fear. I waited for the adrenaline to catch up with me. I told myself to name what was normal. My window reflected the streetlight, my phone face down on the nightstand, the ceiling fan making a coin click every 6th rotation. And then I named what was not normal. The smell pooling out of the closet, like laundry left in the washer too long. A sweet sourness that made my tongue feel furry, and the way the closet light refused to obey the switch. The toggle was down. I knew it was. Still, a thin ember colour lay along the seam where the door didn't meet the wall. I said, Maisie, to have something to say, and then I stood up. The carpet was superb. When I put my hand on the knob, my palms sweated and stuck to it. I don't think I've told anyone that. Sweat is one of those details that sounds theatrical when you say it later. But it was real. I turned the knob and opened the door. The closet was just a closet. Hangers, clothes, and cardboard boxes with romantic comedy words like seasonal written on them in my mother's handwriting. Shoes that still belonged to the old life we had the week before, when the closet was somewhere else. And that smell, pungent as daytime breath held too long. I clicked the light switch. Nothing. The filament inside the glass bulb glimmered a sullen orange and died. The pull chain rattled like a necklace someone didn't want. Maisie refused to cross the threshold. She braced herself with both front paws in the bedroom and stretched her neck toward the dark, like a person who wants to look off the roof but not stand too close to the edge. A low sound came out of her, not a whine. More like a question she didn't trust me to answer. So I did what I do when I don't have an answer. I organized. I pretended to straighten a stack of folded hoodies on the shelf. I pushed a box toward the back wall with my foot and stopped when it bumped wood I couldn't see. I stood very still and listened. Have you ever heard so hard that the whole house feels like it's breathing into your ear? The air gets big. Silence takes on a contour. You can sense where the corners are by the way the quiet pools are there. That's what it was like. And under all that, a vibration in the shared wall with my brother's room. Too soft to be a knock. Too precise to be nothing. I closed the closet door. I was gentle with it, as if the door had feelings I might bruise by slamming. I sat back on the bed and put both hands on Maisie's rib cage until my own breathing found hers. And then I did the brave thing that doesn't look brave. I went to sleep. If the story ended there, I wouldn't be talking to you. The second part starts with a knock. My brother and I knock stupid little codes at each other through the shared wall. Too quick, long, to say goodnight without waking Mom. I woke up to 3 polite taps, the kind you use on a bathroom door when you're too nice to say hurry up. I reached for my phone to answer him with a text, but then I tapped back. Under my hand, the phone buzzed, lit my face, and showed a message from him. What do you want? What? I typed back. I thought that was you. 3 dots appeared, then vanished, like someone who steps into a room to say something and then remembers they don't want to start a fight. He didn't respond. I lay there with the blue light on my chin and listened to a house I didn't know yet, hearing the soft, clicking expansion of the ceiling fan and the whisper of something catching in a vent. I decided not to answer, partly because I didn't want to be the kind of person who turns a house into a story, and partly because I was already that kind of person and didn't want to confirm it. Morning brought my brother's voice at my door. Hey, wake up. Also, why is your closet light flickering? I sat up hard enough to feel my stomach snag and looked across the room. The closet door was cracked the way it had been when we moved in. The light beyond was a wan, pulsing thing, like someone trying to blow on a candle to keep it alive. The wall switch was down. Don't touch it, I said, sharper than I meant to. He stopped with his hand halfway out, surprised to find a wire where we usually keep a joke. So I told him. I left out the part where I felt the house pause when the woman crossed the room. I didn't have the language for that yet, but I told him about the shape and how it walked into the closet without looking at me, and how the dog barked at the seam between door and frame like sound could push something back. He didn't ask if I was sure. He looked at me the way he looks at map directions. Okay, so this is the route. We told Mom over cereal. I could see the effort it took for her not to be dismissive. She's a fair person. She would rather die than call her kids dramatic in a new house. But she has a list on her phone labeled Day 1, Day 2, Day 3. And nowhere on that list does it say, banish lingering sorrow from closet. She listened, nodded, and said, we'd have an electrician look at the switch and a pest control specialist check for animals in the walls. She kissed my head like an apology and told me to be the brave that actually works. Go to school on time. Keep your room clean. Don't spook your brother. I tried. I really tried. But you can't unhear a house after it says your name. The knocks came again that evening. 3, then 5. Then the slight scratch of a fingertip testing paint. The smell got stronger. Wet cotton pressed flat with heat. The light continued to behave as if it were a trapped thing. We both lay there and texted without saying anything aloud. You hear that? Yes. Don't knock back. Okay, neither of us did. That was the first wise decision we made. On Sunday, we opened the crawl space panel and shone a flashlight under the house. My brother belly slid in with a grin that said, if you tease the dark first, maybe it will pick someone else. He found nothing but cobwebs and a patch of newer wood beneath my closet. Water stain, he said, pointing. Maybe the line behind your wall leaks. It felt like a blessing to be handed a plumbing explanation. We stood up lighter than we'd bent down. The retired couple across the street came over with thin coffee in paper cups and information we didn't ask for. Previous owner worked nights at the hospital, the woman said, sympathizing with anyone who has to learn a house in the sun. Sweet, quiet, very private. Why'd she move? My brother asked, too casually. Daughter wanted her closer to work, the husband said. Smaller place, less house to manage. He looked down the hallway toward our rooms and smiled the way older adults do when they pretend to be superstitious for fun. Never like closets you can step into. A closet should keep to its lane. It sounded like a joke until we laughed, and then it didn't. I don't think he meant to put a stone in my pocket, but I carried it around all afternoon anyway. The electrician came with a leather tool belt and a mouth already set to patient. He opened the switch plate, clicked his tongue, explained about neutrals and shared loads, and ghost voltage, which is precisely as reassuring as it sounds. He tightened, tested, and said, there, in the tone of a man proud of pushing back the world. He flicked the switch on and off a few times, and the bulb obeyed like a dog that had come when called enough to know a treat was coming. For a handful of hours, I believed. I watched the sun sit on the edge of the neighbor's roof, kept the TV off, put my ear to the wall, and heard nothing but house bones settling. Mum's face softened. She was almost herself again in this kitchen, not the foreman who had to get the job done. I let the evening turn into night without preparing for it like a battle. And then came the new knock. Not on the shared wall. From the closet, from the wood itself, with the sound of skin on wood. 3, then 3, then 1. The rhythm my brother and I use when we want the other to come to the door quietly. My phone brightened with his text. Are you hearing this? Another followed before I could answer. It's like she's between. I stood and stepped toward the closet. The switch was down. The line of light along the door seam was not there. The smell, though, rose fresh and thick. I reached for the knob, and the air at my wrist went cold as if someone had opened a freezer from inside the wall. Maisie tucked herself behind my calves, trembling so fast it felt like a mechanical thing. Don't open it, my brother called through the wall. His voice had a quiet in it you only hear when a person is walking across ice they can't see. Come to my room. I tried to coax the dog out, and she flattened herself under the bed. I stepped into the hall, and he opened his door a slit. We met in the middle like kids defying a curfew. In his room, the knock came instantly from his closet. Answer quick, like something had been listening for our choice. He turned on his lamp, and we both watched his closet knob. It did not move. The air, however, felt like breath that had been held too long and now needed somewhere to go. He knocked back. 3, 3, 1. From my room, through the wall, the same pattern returned. It felt less like sound and more like the house flexing at the joint. What if we open both at once? He whispered. What if we close both forever? I said, and immediately knew that wasn't going to happen. There are some doors you can't board up because they aren't made of wood. They're in you. We went back across the hall together, like a single organism split by drywall. He sat on the floor with his back to the shared wall. I did the same on my side. We put our palms flat against the paint and felt heat there that didn't belong to us. He knocked once, and I knocked once. And then, from somewhere in the middle, came the faintest answering touch, like fingers testing for a heartbeat. I don't want to understate the next part. It's where belief cracks or cures. We woke Mum. She didn't want to be woken, not because she was cruel, but because she was practical. And practicality keeps houses standing. She listened. She tried to frown the sounds away. And then the closet light came on with the switch down, soft and stubborn, like a person refusing to stop speaking when told to do so. Mom moved fast. She unscrewed the faceplate and peered into the box, as if she could coax the wires into behaving. She tugged the pull chain. The light stayed on. The smell came stronger, then stronger still. A wet iron sweetness that sat on the tongue. From the wall opposite us, a single sharp bang announced itself. So sudden Mum gasped, hand flying to the paint the way you check a forehead for fever. We stood there, 3 people training a house to be reasonable. After a long minute, the light went out on its own. The smell receded, like a tide pretending not to be ashamed of how far it came in. Mum turned her face toward us in a way I recognized. She had moved from, "This is ridiculous," to "I will kill whatever is hurting my kids." And the objects had not changed. That kind of love can fix almost anything you can hold. It doesn't know what to do with what you can't. I slept in my clothes that night. I didn't plan to. I just lay down and refused to be the kind of girl who undressed while something watched the seam of a door. Sometime after 2, I woke with the taste of hospital air in my mouth. It's the only way I can describe it. Recirculated and warm and chemical around the edges. I dreamed I was in a basement hallway with doors that sighed as they closed. However, there were no beds in any of the rooms. Instead, there were just stacks of folded sheets that rustled like breathing when I walked past. There was a light above each door, and the lights blinked a word I couldn't read and still can't. When I woke, the closet door was open another finger width, and my name was pressed into the wall by a voice that could have been my brother's if my brother had been speaking from underwater. I stood and pressed my ear to the wall. "What do you want?" I whispered, and the answer came as a vibration more than a word. If I had to translate, I'd say it asked me to open something. Not the closet, not the door between our rooms. Something that belonged to both. A space I didn't have a name for then, and barely do now. The next day, I found a shirt in the closet that I didn't remember hanging. It was pale blue, wrinkled too deeply to be just a bad fold, and the tag had a name written in faded marker. I couldn't read it. The letters bent into one another the way names do on hospital laundry when the ink isn't new. I smelled the cloth and had to put it down. The iron metal sweetness hit so hard it felt like the shirt had a tongue. I told myself it had fallen out of a box we hadn't unpacked yet. I hung it back up anyway, which is its own kind of admission. We tried to make the house small again. Music on, windows open to exchange air, phones on loud so no knock could sneak us into a story. But around midnight, the knocks returned in the rhythm we used when we were little and wanted to be let back into the room after a fight. My brother texted, "It's writing." I didn't know what he meant until he added, "On my wall, marks." In the morning, I saw 3 faint circles in the paint near the baseboard of his closet wall, the same color as tea that's already been diluted with milk. They weren't drips, they were coin-sized, as if someone on the other side had pressed their fingertips in and held, as if paint had a memory and remembered the shape. The electrician's fix was still in place. The light no longer flickered when the switch was off, but the house had found a different way to breathe. We told Mom again. I watched her face travel from annoyance to worry to a kind of compassionate inertia. The place you go when the problem is past your tools. She said we were overtired. She said the brain does odd things after a move. She made appointments with a plumber, another electrician, and pest control again, as if calling more professionals could stitch up a hole we couldn't see. She went to work. We stayed in the house until the time she left us. I don't know how to guide you through what happened next, except to say we didn't escalate it. It escalated us. The knocks moved along the perimeter of the room like a person testing studs. The smell came and went like the weather. The dog learned to sleep under my bed with her back pressed to the wall at my feet, as if she could guard that part of me from inside the frame. My brother and I began to answer each other out loud when we were alone, because the texts had started doing a trick. Messages sent at times we weren't holding our phones, words that were ours without being ours. "What do you want?" He'd get from me. "Are you awake?" I'd get from him. And when we compared, we didn't like the way the timestamps stacked up. 2 phones speaking through a wall like tin cans on a string. I checked the local news site for stories about the previous owner because that's the move everyone makes in stories like this. There was nothing, not even a human interest piece about a long-time hospital worker retiring to be near her daughter. The missing person blurb I thought I saw the first night slid away from me like a fish I never actually caught. I began to understand that the house had a better memory than the internet. The last night, by which I mean the previous night, I can tell you about without losing the parts of the story that make it mine, started with a leak. The plumber had been through during the day, cheerful in a way people who work under houses have to be. He said the patch beneath my closet was old and holding. He tapped a pipe and said, "Good bones." He smiled at me in a way I didn't know how to accept, like he wanted me to trust him that houses are more kind than not. He left us with an invoice and the belief that water obeys human schedules. At 11, water did what it wanted. A dark stain spread low along the left wall inside my closet, blossoming in a soft-edged curve. I touched it and my finger came away damp. The smell was immediate, familiar and wrong. Not mildew, not rot. That hot metal sweetness again, like pressing a coin to your tongue until it leaves a taste that isn't entirely there. I didn't call my mother. I didn't wake my brother. I stood in that doorway and felt the air pulling past me toward the seam where the door would meet the jamb if I closed it. And I realized the closet wasn't breathing out anymore. It was breathing in. "Tell me your name," I said, and I hated the fact that the words came out respectful, like I was speaking to someone who could be offended. "I saw you. I know you were here." Something moved in the mirror on the back of the door. In the glass, the room behind me was half there, half a suggestion. My own reflection stood at an angle that didn't quite match the way my body felt. To my left shoulder, a shape thickened and thinned like breath in fog. Short, hair straight, the oval of a face that might be hiding a mouth. In the mirror, the shape lifted a hand, and for one murky beat, my hand inside the reflection didn't keep up. I blinked, and it was gone. The closet smelled like a laundromat that had run out of quarters. From the shared wall, a single soft knock, more like a tap a nurse might give your arm to find a vein. I knocked back before I knew I'd decided. 3, 3, 1. The answer came from the wall, yes, but also from inside the closet. Not loud, not proud, just there. The way a heartbeat becomes audible in a stethoscope when you hadn't realized you were listening in precisely the right place all along. "Okay," I said. "Okay." I turned away from the closet and sat on the floor with my back to the shared wall. "Sit down," I told my brother, as if we were 8 again, and inventing a game that mainly consisted of being together in the same square of air. Through the paint, I felt him settle. The knocks kept their rhythm for a while and then softened, like speech turning into breathing, then breathing into sleep. I wish I could tell you that what woke me later was the sound any house would recognize and rush to fix. The snap of wood that means something has failed, the furious hiss of a ruptured pipe. It wasn't. It was a text. My phone lit the room with its bad blue. "Come here," my brother wrote. "Now." I'm on the wall. I thought it was a joke. He writes weird things when he's scared. I texted back, "Stop. Where are you really?" He didn't answer with words. He knocked, not from his room, from inside the shared wall. 4 slow taps, a pause. Then the rhythm we used at 11 years old when we promised not to tell Mom we'd broken the frame of the basement door. 3, 3, 1. I said his name out loud, and it landed in the room wrong, like a coin on carpet. I stood up and went into the hall, opened his door, and his bed was empty and unmade, full of the shape that was not him. Panic is the weather. It happens to you. You don't make it. My mouth went dry the way it does when the dentist says, "You'll feel a little pressure, and what you feel isn't little." I put my hand on the shared wall and felt a vibration that wasn't sound. It was like placing your palm over someone's throat and feeling them hum before you hear the note. "Don't do this," I said to the house, because I didn't know who else to address. "Give him back." The closet door in my room pulled inward a fraction, the way a door does when there's a draft from somewhere deeper. The smell rose. The shirt with the faded name trembled on its hanger. The 3 faint circles near the baseboard in my brother's closet, on the other side of the wall, darkened in my mind, as if I could see through. I repeated his name with all the syllables a sister has. and the knock came back against my open closet, palm flat, as if a hand had found a surface and was reminding me how thin the world can get when you've been in it too long. I stepped into the closet with my hands out. The dark in there has a shape now, precise in ways it didn't before. I could feel where the left wall bowed by a 1/4 inch, where the hanging bar had a stitch of tape on it to cover a burr, where the carpet ended, and a strip of raw wood began. I ran my fingers along the back, pressed shamefully hard at the place where the stain had spread, as if a human body could push through plaster by insisting. I heard footsteps that didn't belong to this century, hard-souled, professional, weary, the pace of a person who clocks in for the overnight and forgets they have a body until they sit down at 5 a.m. to drink from a paper cup. "I'm here," I said. "I'm here." I don't know who I meant it for. In the mirror, I saw a motion behind me and turned so fast I hit the door with my shoulder. For a second, precisely the right kind of second for people to call you hysterical later, I saw a figure in the glass that wasn't me, yet wasn't not me. It was short and focused, and so tired that the word tired felt like a lie. The figure's mouth opened, and I expected a voice that would prove everything and save nothing. What came instead was a breath against the glass that fogged and wrote nothing. And then the fog stayed as if the breath had nowhere else to go. "I don't have an ending you can use as evidence. I can only give you what I have. My brother is fine, if by fine you mean he sits a little closer to the walls now when he reads, as if he's waiting for a cue only he can hear. The electrician swears the switch is correct. The plumber swears the pipes hold. The pest control guy shrugged in a language that costs $89 an hour. The shirt is still in my closet. Some afternoons, it feels dry. Some mornings it feels damp, as if someone had worn it through the night and then taken it off before the sun could see. The name on the tag has blurred to the point where the first letter could be an M, an N, or the left-hand half of a W. If I stand in the mirror and hold the tag up just so, sometimes the name resembles mine. That's probably a trick of the font. It's also probably how the house teaches you to stay. Sometimes the light breathes, the thin ember outlining the seam with the switch stubbornly down. Sometimes the knocks become the sound of beds being made in a place that no longer has beds. Sometimes my phone lights up with a message I know I didn't send, and my brother texts from the other side. Very funny it wasn't. And sometimes, in the hour right before 4 a.m., a voice I have learned to love as if it were part of my own throat, says my name through the paint and asks a question I can't quite hear. People want a moral. I don't have one. I could tell you to tape the switch, to keep the door cracked by the same measure each night, to never knock back in threes. However, the truth is that if something is between, it will find a way to ask. Here is the only advice I can give you that feels accurate. When you hear a knock from a place nobody can stand, answer with your open hand, not your knuckles. Let it know you're not trying to break through. You're trying to feel where the wall is thin. I promised I'd tell this straight, and I have, and I haven't. Memory is a room with mirrors. If my details fail, the shape remains. A short woman walked from the front corner of my room into my closet and never once looked at me as if I were a surprise. My dog saw her. The light obeyed and then didn't. The smell taught me to taste metal ghosts. The wall learned my name and then returned it in my brother's voice. My mother believed in us exactly as much as a mother can, without letting the world become unlivable. And if you stand at my doorway tonight and ask why the closet seam is measured, why the switch is taped down, why the shirt hangs like a forgotten flag, I will tell you this. Houses remember what we do in them, and sometimes they keep doing it after we leave. If you lean close and put your ear to the wall and hold very still, the breath you hear may be your own, or it may be the house, asking whether you are coming in or going out, whether this is the front of the room or the back, whether you know which side of the closet is the room. If I forget to answer, listen for the soft flat of a hand against wood. 3 times, then 3, then 1. It won't be a knock. It will be the sound of someone trying not to startle you. If you answer, be kind. If you don't, be kinder. Either way, leave enough light for the seam to glow. That's how you know the house hasn't decided against you yet. Last thing. Last truth. I am telling you this now because I can't tell it to my mother without changing who she is. And I can't tell it to myself without the story trying to end differently each time. If something knocks from inside your walls tonight, and your phone lights up with a message you know you didn't send, and the dog refuses to cross the threshold like it understands contracts better than you do, don't panic. Stand where you are and speak your own name first. Make sure you can still hear it. Then ask softly, "What do you want?" If the reply comes from the wrong side of the room, don't assume it's a trick. Some doors only open inward. Some closets aren't closets in every direction. Some owners never leave. Some never arrive. And some of us are only borrowing the space between.